Welcome back, designers, to Silvia Designs. I'm Kat, and in today's video, we are going to be taking our macrame square knot bracelet and adding beads to the center row. If you are not familiar with macrame square knots, I will go over that a little bit in this video here, but I encourage you to go back and watch my previous video about how to do the macrame square knots, and I will link it for you above now and down in the description box for you. Also down in that description box, you'll find all of the materials that I will be using in today's demonstration. If you are new here and you are just joining me for the very first time, welcome. I encourage you to subscribe here if you are interested in learning the art and business of jewelry design. I have weekly videos that come out every Wednesday. Also follow me over on Instagram and TikTok at Silvia Designs. All right, let's do some macrame. Now, if you watched part one, this will probably look a little familiar to you. This is the bracelet we did in that video here, and this is the version with the button closure, but you can see that we have our macrame square knots there. This is another version I did using 2 cords of the ombre, or that kind of nature style. And this is all from that same cord that I've linked below. So if you want to, or that same card of cord, I'll say that, linked below. So if you want to purchase this, this is what that kind of looks like all worked up. It's very cool. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we wanna add some beads to that center line of the macrame. I have 2 different colors of cords, again, just to kind of make it easy for you. But I do want to point out that these lengths are a little bit different. I still have 8 feet of my darker cord, which is going to be my outside cord. But over here, I have a little bit more than the 3 feet. And I'll kind of point out why we have a little bit extra here as we move on. Okay, and then today I'm going to be using 8mm wood beads. You can use pretty much any bead as long as it is going to fit over the 2 cords of our center row. So pony beads work great for this. Gemstones that have a larger hole would work great for this. So anything that's going to fit over our 2 cords in the center there, you should be safe with. So before you get started, go ahead and test that out to make sure it's going to work. But let's bring in our little mini macrame board to help us out, and I'm going to get us all set up, kind of same as we did in the first video, and then we're going to start adding our beads. Okay, so I'm just bringing our 2 cords together, just as we did in the other one, folding each in half, finding the center loop there for our first one, and here's our second one, bringing those 2 ends together, and finding our central loop. And here we go. So now we have our midway point for both cords in our fingers there. And now what we're gonna do is I am going to, there we go, bring them together, fold them over, and make a nice little overhand knot, pulling them through together. And we want to keep them as even as possible. There we go, creating a nice little loop there. So we're going to do a little kind of version of the knot closure here. So this is what we are going to be working with. Now we bring in our mini macrame board, and I'm going to set this guy up here and pull him right down into the notch. Now, if you haven't worked with this before, it's very cool. It's this little foam board. I did a little more talking about it in the previous video, but it's great for travel. It's great for also if, you know, you need to put it down and walk away, you can set it into these little notches and make sure it's all nice and ready to go for you when you're ready to return back to your work. Okay, so all I'm doing here is I'm just setting up so I can get these 2 lighter cords down in the center, and I'm just going to anchor them down here in the bottom, but I want to leave a little bit of slack there just to get started. All right, now if you are unfamiliar with our macrame square knots, here is your quick little refresher course. So we make our macrame square knots by taking the cord in the left hand and bringing it across, creating that little 4 right there, okay? And then the cord in our right hand, we want to lay over top, so it's crossing over top of that cord that we just put across. Now you can kind of pick everything up, and what we want to do is we want to scooch this one through so that it comes up through this loop here and pull it all the way through. And now we're just going to bring those cords together and bring them up towards the top and make sure they have a nice little knot that sits right there. And now we're going to repeat, but on the other side. So we're going to create our 4 over here. We're going to bring this cord up and over and across, and then scooch this through this big loop here and then pull through. All right. And now I'm going to repeat one more time here. So once more, and over top, and pull through. Like I said, if this is a little fast, go back and watch part 1. I used some Paracord. It's a little bit easier to see. So this is just a quick little refresher course. So we keep that 4, over top, through the center, and out to the side. Okay, there we go. All right, so we actually have done 2 full square knots there. Now, go ahead and take this cord that's in the center and release it from the notch so it can be free flowing there. Now for this, because this is a little bit more advanced, this will stay free flowing. You don't have to put it back into the notch if you don't want to, but I'm going to show you a way that you can. All right, so the first thing we're going to do when we are adding beads is make sure you're adding it to both of your cords here. And you can kind of just get it through and pull all the way down and let it sit there right up at the top, okay? Now we're going to repeat our square knot. It's up to you how many square knots you want to do in between each bead. I'm going to keep doing 2 square knots, but keep in mind that 2 square knots is 1, 1.5, right? So we have that half one there. So that's 1. Now this is your second one going to the left and going to the right. All right, so that is actually 2 square knots, even though it sort of feels like 4 maneuvers, right? Now you can do all kinds of different patterns here, and we'll get into that in just a second. But let's say you wanted to add on a bunch of your wood beads at the same time. So you can do one here and slide that on. And now we're just going to repeat. We're going to add a few here. Now you're probably asking, why did I have to do a little bit extra cord here? Well, as you can see, it's already fraying just a little bit. You can try to either tape this with some Scotch tape to help kind of form a little needle, or just know that you might have a little bit of scrap because you'll probably end up getting a few, like you'll have to just clip it a couple of times, so eventually you'll just kind of take away some cord. So you have some options there. All right, so now I'm going to anchor it back down here at the bottom so you can see it's nice and anchored. We have our little bow happening, and now we have our 3 beads here that we want to use. Well, we can just scooch that guy up, scooch these guys down, because they're not going to get in the way. So now we can do our square knots again. So it's a way to sort of preload, if you want, your beads, okay? So now, let's say I want to do a little bit of a different pattern, right? Let's say I want to do just let's say I want to do a few more before I add in more of my beads, okay? So you can just keep making your square knots here. And you can just keep going. Now this is also a fun way to make a focal. Let's say you didn't want to start adding beads until a little bit later. You can also do that as well. So this is just going to be just kind of an experimental piece, so I don't know how it's going to look at the end, but I do have another finished piece using some very cool kind of pony gemstone beads. So you can see that you can make as many square knots as you like before you add in your beads here. And it doesn't always have to be even. You want to make 3 square knots? Go for it. You want to make 7 square knots? Go for it. All right, so we do that. And now we have our beads here that are already on our strand and they're ready to go. So I'm just going to pop him up there. There we go. So see, it's really nice and easy and fun. So you can do just one. Let's say we just wanted to do just the one there. So you can just see how that looks. So they're right up close to each other. Now the bigger the beads you have, just the thicker the whole piece is going to be. So just keep that in mind as you're doing it, because you're having this sort of binding on the outside as you move up the piece. Okay, so I'm going to continue to do kind of just some fun little patterns, and I'm going to come back and show you what I've done with my little experiment. All right, so this turned out to be a little bit of a crazy pattern, but whatever. All right, so I want to point out a few spots here. I'm just going to take it out of the macrame board and set that aside. Well, oh, really quick, I did go over this in the other video, but the macrame board does have a nice inch marker here. So if you are working along the length here, it's right here. And if you're working from this side, it's right here. So in case that's something that you are wanting to keep track of as you work, there you go, built-in ruler. Okay, let's go back to this guy here. I want to point out a few sections, I'll say. So we started with a little bit of a wider piece here. Now you could do just one square knot at the very beginning and get right into adding your beads. You could do long sections and it would look like that. But if you look really close here, and let me put it down actually, I feel like this might be the best way to see it. And let's go ahead and zoom in there. When you look at this section here, you can see that we have these little loops here at the top, right? I'm going to try to bring it as close as I can to the camera. So you can see that there's loops and they're all on the same side there, okay? Now that's when you do the square knot starting on the same side each time, right? You always maybe start with the left or you start with the right. That's how it'll look. Obviously, if you flip it over, it looks a little bit different. Now you have a section here where we have our loops, and again, same side. But if you look here, I did 2 in between each, so you can see that there's that little space, but those knots still look all the same. So they're all starting the same direction. So if that's a look you're going for, remember to keep in mind which hand you started with and which you're going to be working with, okay? So that is if you are going to finish it just like that, okay? So keep that in mind. So if you remember in our part 1 video, we had 2 different closures. We had the double overhand knot or the overhand knot, and then we also had the button closure. I'm going to offer you a third example here. So we're going to take our 2 cords here, and I'm just going to tie a simple overhand knot with our black cords right on top, same as we did with the button closure, and give it a really, really good tug there, okay? Now, I'm going to repeat that and do another overhand knot with these cords. Pull through and flip around to the side. There we go. Now pull. Now, here's the thing. I did say that you probably don't need any glue with this. If you wanted to add glue, here would be your opportunity. Because what we're going to do now is we are going to come in and we're going to trim those 2 black cords right off. And you can leave little bunny ears there. That's fine. They'll get covered up. Don't worry about it. All right, set that aside. Now we have our center cord here. Now what I'm going to do is I did end up using a little piece of tape to create a little needle there. I'm going to pick up another wood bead and I'm going to string it on and pull it all the way down there to the bottom, right? So now I'm going to take these 2 cords and I'm going to do an overhand knot using both of them. And I want to bring them as close as I possibly can to that finished knot there. So give it a nice good tug on both sides. And I'm also going to try to repeat that just to make that knot a little bit bigger. You don't have to, it's not going to go anywhere. But let's see what happens if I try to make that knot just a little bit bigger, a little more secure. All right, there we go. Now, all right, so these little bunny ears, they're kind of bugging me, so I'm going to come in and try to trim those off a little bit. If you are going to use glue on hemp cord, I recommend E6000 or a super new glue. Those are probably going to be your 2 best ones. You could also use a GS Hypo Cement if you like. I think that could be a good glue as well. All right, so now I'm going to come to this end, and I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off. And this one I want to leave a little frayed tail. See how that looks. And now we can come to this side and string through our little bead. So it kind of goes with the design. It's an option. Like I said, this particular design is a little crazy, admittedly, but I just wanted to be able to kind of show you a couple of different examples all in one piece. So here we have our other pieces here, and I did promise you another piece that showcases what it could look like when it's not so crazy with beads on it. So we have this piece here. Now this is just that simple overhand knot. I have that loop, and these are just using one square knot in between. Let me kind of bring that up to the camera so you can see. Again, you can see how beautiful and uniform all of those little knots are. And that is the prettier example that I want you to take away from this, and not this crazy one using all kinds of fun experiments. But anyway, that is how to do macrame square knots while adding beads. And I hope this was really informative for you, and it gives you a lot of inspiration of what you can do with this very simple design. Thanks so much for watching, designers. This is a really fun design that you can truly make your own, and I want to see what you can create. So head on over to Instagram, and when you post a picture of your finished design, make sure to tag me at Silvia Designs so I can see what you made. Make sure you are subscribed here, and if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. It lets me know that you're interested to see more tutorials like this one. As a reminder, everything you've just seen here is linked down in that description box. Got a design or technique that you want to see? Let me know in the comments, and you might just see a video made specially for you. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.